Welcome to the Inspired Podcast. I'm your host, Andrea De La Cerda, and each week I'm bringing you the latest discussions and news about changes in the landscape of education and entrepreneurship. As a 22-year entrepreneur, corporate executive, business coach, and leader, I mentor a community of change-making men and women to get out of their box and step into their true calling to make the biggest impact. This podcast is all about empowering us, navigating life's twists and turns, and stepping into the fullest version of who we're meant to be.
Hey there, and welcome to the Inspired Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am extremely excited about the guest that we have, and I'm going to introduce her, Dr. Tracy Baynes. She is the founder and CEO of an organization called STEP, Student Expedition Program, College Prep. It's a college access and leadership program for low-income Arizona high school students. She received her doctorate in oceanography from Scripps Institution of Oceanography in 1993 after several years as a coral reef researcher at the University of Miami and the North Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Tracy turned her full focus to teaching in 1996. We're going to talk more about that. She joined Columbia University's Biosphere 2 Center to teach in their undergraduate program, and she later taught and developed college-level field courses for Sea Education Association, University of Pittsburgh, Long Island University, University of Montana, and Prescott College. From 2001 to 2004, Tracy developed an international ship-based ocean semester on the West Coast for Long Island University. And in 2004, Tracy founded STEP's College Prep and Leadership Program with the focused mission of educating and empowering low-income Arizona high school students who enroll in and graduate from college. Fantastic. Dr. Baines is the perfect example of why following an unconventional path can sometimes lead you to your greatest impact and the power of finding your ultimate purpose, sometimes where you least expect it. So I'm so thrilled to welcome Dr. Baines to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Wonderful. Well, let's just kick it off because I know our audience might already have some questions. You've got this seasoned background, truly are very well educated, and then you went from oceanographer and with a PhD from Scripps, and then moving into working with low-income high school students, which seems at first glance two totally different worlds, but help connect the dots for us. How did that happen? And what was your process of self-discovery, if there was one, in that moment that you switched?
Sure. Well, even in the research that I was doing on coral reefs, they were very experiential programs. So, for example, for my doctorate work down in Baja, we'd have people from the general public come down and spend 2 weeks with us diving on the reef and helping with the research, right? So kind of field-based stuff. I was also working as an instructor for Outward Bound and the National Outdoor Leadership School for years also, really recognizing the power of experiential education, getting out there, and doing something, right? That probably is taking you outside of your comfort zone, right? So I had that kind of background, and my research was always based on field work. When I finished my degree and I went to the National Marine Fisheries Service out and doing coral reef research in the Keys, I kind of started to realize that I liked research, but I didn't love it, right? I think part of what I loved was the field work portion of that. So I started to really recognize what I love is teaching, and I love teaching in the field. And so I went into doing teaching and running semesters at sea, right, for years. And I started to recognize that I was mostly working with wealthy students in these programs.
And do you think that's because
I started to think,
is that because those individuals maybe had more easy access into these programs?
I think it's two things. I think they're costly. Yeah. And I think it's just exposure to these programs, right? I think those two things. So I started to kind of ask myself, like, I wonder where everybody else is. Like, why am I not seeing a larger stretch of the population? And I started looking at education statistics. I found that there was this very significant educational achievement gap between high income and low income students. And when you see something like that it's not on ability alone. And so I started to think, what is that about? And I thought the kinds of programs I've been doing that really challenge students and take them outside of their comfort zone and then provide them with a great deal of confidence. I thought, wow, I'd really like to bring these types of programs to students that are coming from that lower income background. And so I spent a year actually researching this and thinking about it and talking to educators at high schools, teachers, counselors, principals. And they said, Tracy, there's so many students we know who were doing the hard work in high school. They were taking the most challenging courses. They were doing really well. Everyone thought they were on track to go to college, and they did not go to college. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's who I want to work with. I want to work with the students that are working really hard and nobody's guiding them, right? And so I launched STEP in 2004. The summer of 2005 was our first leadership expedition, partnering with the National Outdoor Leadership School to go to Alaska for 3 weeks sea kayaking. So I'm taking desert urban kids to Alaska, to the ocean,
How
sea
was that?
kayaking,
I mean,
right? So honestly, if I could have put them on the moon, I would have. So my goal was to get them as far outside their comfort zone as possible. And then through a 3-week experience, really have that transformative experience where they really recognize internally they have what it takes to meet any challenge as long as they do the hard work. I think as adults, we can tell young people that they can do anything that they want to do. It's not until they really understand it at a core level does that really click in. And that's what this type of experience does.
I would venture to
So
say
it's
that's probably true for most of us, right? Until we absolutely believe
100%.
that we can do it. I was going to ask you because our organization works with a lot of at risk youth and opportunity youth, and also some underrepresented young adults. And we have found that sometimes getting them on that path toward college, or even sometimes a certification program or some sort of a career path, is challenging, not just because they haven't had access to these programs, but also sometimes other obstacles get in the way. They don't have transportation because their tires blew out and they can't afford new tires, or they're food insecure. They're not sure where they're going to get. They're going to have 3 meals a day, and so those things kind of start to get in the way of their success. Have you seen that at all? And what I suppose would be your biggest challenge for serving this population of students?
Well, I think everything that you bring up is so valid, and it's important for us to understand that when you're coming from a lower income background, that you are dealing with challenges that other people are not having to deal with. And I have found over the years that working with the students that I work with, that fact that they can handle all these challenges and
Hmm.
still be working hard in school and getting good grades and taking challenging courses. I mean, they're spectacular human beings. And, a lot of students have additional responsibilities like taking care of their siblings, right? So they can't just go and do all the maybe extracurricular activities that other students can do because they have to go home and take care of their younger siblings, right? So I think what it takes and what we look for in our program is really strong internal motivation.
How do you
Really.
know that? Like, tell me about your process for recruiting, like the right student, because it sounds like it's either a fit or it's not a fit, and looking for that right fit. What does that process look like?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, one of the things is the students apply to our program. Okay, so they're not just
Hmm.
handed this, right? So they apply, and our application is intense. It has 6 essays that they have
Wow.
to write. If a student looks at that and says, I don't want to write 6 essays," then they're probably not a good fit for our program. So right from the beginning, we're doing some vetting, right? You've got to be willing to work hard. You've got to want this. You've got to want it more than we want it
Hmm.
for you. And that's where I'm looking for in those applications. When I read those essays, I'm really looking for that fire. I'm looking for that internal motivation because, Andrea, I can give them a lot. We can give them through our program. We can give them a greater sense of the larger world out there, a greater confidence. We can work on their confidence building, a lot of self-advocacy skills, a lot of things that we can work with them on. I think it's very hard to give another human being internal motivation.
Agreed. That's challenging,
So that's a nugget of
right?
gold that we search for in our application to then have students come into our program. And our program now, it started as I hate to say just, but it started with just this 3-week leadership expedition. But in 2011, we really expanded to a very comprehensive multi-year college prep program. So now we become their college parents, and we're really taking them through the entire process. So it's a combination of leadership, which is really critical, those self-advocacy skills, building that, and then also just the knowledge and the exposure to schools that will fully meet their financial need so that college is affordable.
Yeah, so it's really, I mean, now it's multifold, I guess. There's probably these students. Help me understand how long they're with you. It must be at least a year that they're working with you, either in the leadership program and then also in college prep. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of time that you must spend with them.
We start with them in their sophomore
Okay.
year of high school, and we work with them all the way through high school graduation and all the way into them getting into their top choice colleges. And of course, we're there for our students if they need us at all while they're at college too. So in the sophomore year, they come into a program like in the spring of their sophomore year. And then right there, that first summer, we have a bunch of partner colleges that we work with to have programs on campus during the summertime. So 2 to 3 week programs where students can actually come and live on a college campus and have that first experience away from home and all the confidence that they get from that, right? And then in the summer between their junior and senior year is when we have 36 students every year going to Alaska. So it's from sophomore year all the way through. And we have monthly workshops. We have individual advising. We have writing workshops. We have ACT prep. We're doing it. We're doing
Yeah, I mean, I
the
think it's
full
fair to
menu.
say you get to know these students pretty well over the course of all of what they're
Absolutely.
doing with you. What would you say, what have you found to be their biggest challenge in this journey with you? What do they run into are there common obstacles that you see that maybe get in their way at times?
I think that transition to college is really even that much more challenging for this population. And I will say that because there's so many aspects to that. One is imposter
Yeah,
syndrome.
yeah.
And that's when you think you're kind of like, well, everybody doesn't understand that gosh, you really don't belong there, and they must have made a mistake. And because our kids are coming from their communities, and they're going to, because I said previously, we work with schools, certainly the Arizona universities, but the only schools we work with outside of Arizona that we really expose our students to are those schools that guarantee to meet full financial need. Okay. So if you get admitted to that school, they will guarantee that through their financial aid, they will cover your need, your family's need. If that need is everything, then they're going to cover it. Okay. So it makes it affordable. But those institutions also happen to be the highest ranked schools in the country. They also happen to historically be predominantly white institutions.
Mm,
White and wealthy, predominantly white and wealthy institutions. So now you're taking this kid from Arizona, from Latino community in Arizona, predominantly low income, and you're transporting them to a school where all of a sudden they're surrounded by people that come from a very different socioeconomic background, very different life experiences. And I think it can feel really overwhelming and that they really don't belong. Right. And it's easy because, the transition to college for anybody is
absolutely.
challenging because the rigor gets so much bigger. Now they're in classes, really small classes where it's discussion based. And if you're a student that has gone to a private high school, boarding school, you know how to do that already. You know how to be in a discussion based class. Well, our kids, they've never done that before. So, there's so many ways that they can think, oh my gosh, I don't belong. They made a mistake. They don't really know, so you can really second guess yourself. And I think we really work when the students in our last few workshops, we work on bringing alumni back to talk to our students and say, listen, I came from where you came from. I felt these feelings. You will feel these feelings, but no, A, you're not alone. And B, you absolutely belong there. And that the university or college is better off by you being there. And so really trying to give them that understanding before they get into it, even though we can't stop them from having those feelings, we can make them understand while they're having those feelings that this is something that they can get through and that this is understandable and
Mhm.
normal, but also doesn't mean that they made a mistake or that the school made a mistake,
Sure. I mean,
right?
you could have a candidate or a participant, I imagine. I mean, their grades are off the charts. They've got 4.5 GPA, and they're, done all the extracurricular. They participated with you. They're otherwise complete self starters, but just them feeling like they're different is hard for any young person, especially I can imagine someone who has a hard time relating to this new community that they're now living in. That is incredibly challenging. I can
Yeah.
imagine. How are their parents? Like, do they have that supportive family behind them, or are they sometimes first generation and the family doesn't know how to support? How does that dynamic look?
I'm glad you brought up the parents and the family because it's really a critical piece to all this. And one of the things we do is, even in our first orientation, the parents have to come. It's required. The parents have to understand and they have to buy into this and they have to support their student in doing this, right? But I mean, I would say that probably a vast majority of the parents first walk into that orientation thinking, okay, what's the scam? Okay, now they're gonna ask me to now they're gonna ask me to pay, now that they've hooked my kid, that sort of thing. I think that's how parents initially walk into our orientation, and I think 3 hours later, they walk out thinking, "Oh my god, we won the lottery."
Amazing.
Because they really know that within that 3 hours, they really find out what we can do together with the students' hard work, and what we ask the parent to do is join us in making this a priority for their student to do this journey. I think often our parents don't feel qualified, maybe is the word, to like I think, when you think of parents advocating on their students' part, I think that comes more naturally for people coming from middle and high income backgrounds than it does from parents coming from low income backgrounds because they might think that they don't even, kind of have the qualifications to be able to advocate for their kid in, say, education. A lot of our parents, had to work at a very early age and had to leave education to support their family. So a lot of our parents may not have even graduated from elementary or middle school or high school. So their student getting graduated from high school is already blowing way past the goalpost and the knowledge of that family for education, right? So they're really become, it's a partnership with us to really kind of bring this whole college going culture into their family. Now, once it's in there and once they've worked with us, I can tell you, we work with a lot of younger
Hmm.
siblings
Sure.
where or cousins or even aunts and uncles. I mean, we once we have a student in our program, if families involved in our program, we are often seeing applicants from, younger members of the family.
Interesting. I mean, I live in Southern California, but there's a large Latino population here. I happen to be married to a Mexican and part of a large Mexican family. One of the things that I remember kind of being, in the early days as I was navigating my new marriage, that I noticed that there were across the much broader family, there were some situations where the parents would actually not want their children to leave because there was sort of this expectation that we're all going to like live together and take care of each other and that they're going to take care of me as I'm getting older. And there was just this sort of understood, sort of unspoken understanding. And then when it was spoken
Yes.
in some of the families, when a young person, announced their desire to go to college, it was like, what does that mean for us? What does that mean for everybody else? You're going to leave us behind? I don't know. But it was just an interesting observation as somebody who was outside of that community because that was very different from my experience.
I think that is a very real cultural thing, which is a beautiful thing, that kind of how
Mm-hmm.
close families
Sure.
are in the Latino community. But that typically does correspond to, well, don't go away from home, right? And I think one of the things that's why when they come in as sophomores, we really hit them hard and we hit their parents hard because the parents are at that orientation talking about taking what you perceive to be a risk or outside your comfort zone to go for 2 to 3 weeks on a college campus away from home. You couldn't do this in a more supportive way. If you would be willing to take that challenge and take that risk and do this with us, I can guarantee you you're going to be happy you did, and a bigger world is going to open up to you. Now, when parents and students are able to do that with us, it's as important for the parents because what happens with the parents is they take this risk. It's a leap of faith for them, right, to have their child go away for 2 to 3 weeks. when the child comes back that much more confident, right? That much more mature, that much more willing to help around the house, or recognizing how much their parents do for them, all the things that they get from having an experience away from home. I think the parents really go, wow, this was a really positive thing. And when you have experiences like that and you kind of stack them up, then you might be able to get to a place where I'm like, okay, I'm willing to have my child go away to college
Absolutely.
because I understand it's a very good
Right.
thing for them.
Yeah.
Right? But you have to have experiences that give that take you there,
Well,
you know?
and I want to talk a little bit about your personal journey through your career here too. Was there ever a time, first of all, I mean, the work that you're doing is fantastic. A tall order when you look at it on paper at first glance. Like we're gonna work with this population that's never gone, they're maybe families haven't gone to college, they never thought they would, but they're really hard workers and we're gonna get them there and we're gonna get them there at no cost to them. Like this big, right? So, I mean, when you first kind of started exploring this idea, was there anyone around you? I'm just super curious to ask, business owners this question. Like, was there anyone around you just saying, like, that's crazy? Or are you sure about
Yeah.
that? Or maybe we should refine the plan a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say like 99% of the people were like, are you crazy? First of all, your background is in oceanography. You're going to do college access with low income high school students, and you're going to start a nonprofit. And there's already a million nonprofits out there. How are you going to get funding? You're not that well connected to a really wealthy class of people. It's just like literally, you could just say there were so many ways this was going to not
Right.
work. And everybody was telling me all those
So
ways.
what does that
And,
do? Does that like
you know,
fuel your motivation? I mean, does that make you want to do it more? Like, what
but
did that?
well, because I think because I really felt like I could have an impact on this statistic that I was seeing that really was a statistic that should not be there, right? I really felt like in my little corner of the world, I could do something. And I felt that strongly from the experience I'd had in my life up until that point, right? And so I was so determined. And part of my personality is just when I get something that I really want to do, it's hard to stop me. And but it's important to understand that, and I think we touched base on this in another conversation we had, which is I come from, I would say, worry stuck. Like, love my mom dearly, but she tended to worry about things, and so I have that. I can worry about things, right? But I really recognized when I started this, I came across a a saying many years ago that said you cannot actively love and actively worry at the same time,
Yeah.
which I think is a really great
Hmm.
insight, right? Now, I'm talking actively, like you often say, well, I'm worrying because I love somebody. But at the moment you're worrying, you're not having feelings of love, right? Like you can't do those two things at the same time. And I really understood at the beginning of this that there's a million things I could have worried about and a million ways that this would not work. But I knew I had to just focus on the work. Just do the work is kind of was my mantra. Just do the good work. Kind of do the good work, it will come. But then you have to do the work, and it's a lot of hard work. And
Absolutely.
you gotta be willing to do that. But I think that's how I think when anybody's successful, they don't let all the reasons that it's not gonna work come in and consume you. I think you just have to do the
Yeah, well,
work.
and one thing that I think is so cool about your story too is that it was certainly fueled by this passion, by this authentic desire to make something better, right? It was the work was
Absolutely.
important, but like you're looking at and as a researcher, you were used to looking at data, you're used to looking at research and research
Mhm.
changes over time. It can be, you can impact, the results of research over time, right? And so I could see how a statistic would pop out to you as being like, wow, is this even real? Is this for,
This
yeah,
isn't
this is
right.
completely, is
It's
anybody else
not
paying
right.
attention to this?
What
you know,
Yeah. Why is
right.
this?
And I think
Right.
that
Right.
is
And I
so
think
like core to us. We all have kind of the reason we were put here on this earth, the thing that's going to fuel us through anything, no matter how hard it is. And it's really cool to see how you
Mhm.
kind of navigated that. You're focusing
Yeah.
on the end goal.
Yes, and, honestly, when I really started to talk to the teachers and the counselors, when they said to me, "There's students that are working hard, nobody's paying attention to them. They have every ability to go to college, but they don't." It really just, something really hit me there,
Yeah.
right? Because I've always been about it takes the hard work. It takes the hard work when nobody's looking, when no accolades are coming your way, right? It takes the hard work at 2 o'clock in the morning. It just takes the hard work. And that's one of the things I say to my students is you can want it all that you want. You could desire something as much as you can possibly desire it. But if you're not willing to do the hard work, it's not going to work out for you. Like that's the core. You have to do the work. And I knew that I was looking at students that were going to be willing to do the work. And that's a key piece of a student that is successful in STEP is somebody that we don't have to convince
Yes.
them, you know?
Right. Because that's a tall order if you're going to get somebody
That's a
to care.
tall, if not impossible order, right? And we always say we can't want this
Right.
more than you do. Like you're the driver, we're the guider, And I think that's it. It was a passion of mine. It became a passion of mine. The other thing I'll say is, and this is what I say to my students too, is the reason I was even able to do this is because I had the education I had. Okay. So I think that's what education gives people. I could have always fallen back on teaching oceanography, right? I had that. I
Yeah,
had
and maybe some people would have thought
that
that makes a lot of sense, actually.
you know, that would have made a lot of sense, right? But I mean, I had that to fall back if this didn't work, right? So I could take a chance. I could take a risk. Whereas I wasn't just in a scenario where every day I was having to go to work and, get the paycheck to survive. You know what I'm saying? I had some savings, like very frugal, and I had this education to fall back on. So I think education opens up opportunities for you, allows you throughout your life to be able to go down the paths that might open up to you that you might become passionate about because we shift as we go through this
Absolutely. I
life.
mean, lifelong learning is where it's at right now. We talk about that a lot at my businesses. Huge believers first, and the idea that anyone, no matter your background, your race, your sexual orientation, everybody deserves a great career they love. Everybody. It just, the fact that, you're providing that for people in your way, in what drives you is fabulous. I mean, it's really respected.
Well, and one of the things I love about this is we're guiding our students through this kind of really pivotal time in
Hmm.
their life, right? Where because the decision to go to college and then the decision of the school you go to, et cetera, like it kind of you're setting yourself off on a pathway, right? And what I love about this is we're also training and giving them the skills then to be able to be successful to meet the future challenges that they're going to absolutely run into in college and career. And what I love is we are launching them, but then they are the ones doing it, right? They're the ones navigating through college, getting a college degree, going on to graduate school. I mean, we have students that I think it's like 12% of our students are in grad or school or have a grad degree. So, uh, they're the ones. And I love also the fact that we're launching voices that have historically perhaps not been in the room,
Absolutely.
right?
Definitely.
And that to me is just, I mean, I think the things that really drive me are this idea of generational change through success in education so that that those students, when they have kids, their kids are going to college and their cousins and their younger siblings are going to be following in their path, right? So you're creating this generational change through education. And then just the second piece is then just that there are those voices that again historically haven't been in the room where decisions are made are going to
Yeah.
be in the room. And that
And
to
they
me
should
is
be.
just
And it's a
yeah.
detriment to companies who
Yeah.
don't have those diverse perspectives. So that's fantastic. I love it so much.
Yeah.
Tell us, Tracy, where the audience can learn more about STEP and how, if any ways they might be involved. I know that you're focused in working in Arizona and that area, but how can people get involved?
We are, but I got to tell you, we have just wonderful donors and supporters supporting us from around the
Wonderful.
country. So we're not just, we don't, but I would say go to our website is a great place to first learn about STEP. If you Google STEP Expedition or STEP College Prep, we are going to pop right up to the top. Our website is stepexpedition.org. And we also have a presence on, Instagram and Facebook and those social media platforms. But I think we thought our website is a really great place to dive in and see kind of some of the stories of our students and the history of what we've been doing and the results. We have 96% of our alumni are in college or have a college
Wow.
degree. And we've
Fabulous.
worked with over 800 students to date.
Fantastic.
So
That's amazing.
so we'd love for you to learn more about STEP. And if, of course, if you ever want to reach out, I always love talking to anybody about
Yeah, and
STEP.
we'll be sure if you're listening and
So,
you want to find more information about how you can get involved or have a chat with Tracy, you can look in our show notes and we'll make sure that we link to all the appropriate social handles and the website so that you can check it out. Thank you.
and I just want to put in a plug. If you are in Arizona, we are a qualified charitable organization for
Oh,
Arizona
very
tax
important.
credits, which is the best thing Arizona does. And so these are literally, if you give to STEP up to the limits of the tax credit for qualifying charitable organizations, you literally get that money back. It's a free donation,
That's incredible.
literally.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I think that there's so many nuggets when hearing other people on their journey that I think that people will relate to um and advice, inspiration that you've offered that I know that our audience will cling on to. So thank you so much for your generous time and for chatting with me today.
It was an absolute pleasure. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
If this episode spoke to you and you want more clarity in your business to see what's working, what's not, and where to focus next, my business audit is a great place to start. It's a personalized review of your business that helps you simplify, realign, and make your next moves with confidence. You can learn more and book yours at AndreaDeLacerda.com. Just navigate to work with me. Thanks so much for joining me.